The Galactic Survey Authority had discovered thousands of planets. Most were boring. Some were beautiful. A few were dangerous. But none of them had ever caused an entire research station to fall silent. Until today, deep inside a massive space station orbiting the capital world of the Galactic Alliance, hundreds of scientists worked day and night studying new star systems. Their job was simple. They searched the galaxy, scanned planets, and recorded anything unusual. Most days, nothing exciting happened. Today was different. Senior researcher Vilek stared at a holographic screen floating above his desk. His 4 silver eyes moved across lines of data. At first, everything seemed normal. The planet was located in a remote yellow star system near the edge of explored space. 1 star, 8 planets. Nothing special. Then the warning symbols appeared. Vilek frowned. He checked the data again. The warnings remained. A strange feeling formed in his chest. "Run another scan," he ordered. The computer obeyed immediately. Several nearby scientists looked up from their work. A second scan usually meant something unusual had been found. Moments later, the results returned. The warning symbols doubled. Now Vilek was concerned. "What is it?" asked one of his assistants. Vilek did not answer immediately. He enlarged the planetary report. The room slowly grew quiet. Atmospheric oxygen concentration, dangerous. Global weather activity, extreme. Predator population, abnormal. Natural disasters, constant. Disease evolution rate, high. Oceanic megafauna, lethal. Gravity, above galactic average. The assistant blinked. "That can't be right." Vilek agreed. No planet should contain all those factors at the same time. Any one of them could make a world difficult to inhabit. Together, it sounded impossible. "Check the sensors," Vilek said. "We already did." "Check them again." The assistant quickly obeyed. Minutes later, the answer came back. The sensors were functioning perfectly. The data was real. A growing crowd gathered around the display. Scientists whispered to each other. The planet looked beautiful from space. Blue oceans, white clouds, green continents. Nothing about it suggested danger, but the numbers told a completely different story. One researcher leaned closer. The gravity alone would eliminate most known species. Another pointed at the weather report. Those storm systems are large enough to destroy cities. A third scientist stared at the ocean scans. There are predators in those waters larger than transport ships. Nobody laughed. Nobody spoke. The room became colder. Then the station's artificial intelligence finished its complete analysis. A red symbol suddenly appeared above the holographic planet. The AI spoke in a calm voice. "Planetary threat assessment complete." Every scientist stopped moving. The computer continued. "Classification, Class 14 Deathworld." Silence. Absolute silence. Nobody had ever heard those words before. The highest classification previously recorded was Class 9. Even those worlds were considered nearly impossible for intelligent life. Class 14? It did not make sense. One young researcher nervously laughed. There must be an error. Nobody agreed, because the AI almost never made mistakes. Vilek stared at the glowing planet. A strange feeling settled over him. The world seemed almost alive. Violent storms moved across the oceans. Volcanoes burned along mountain chains. Massive predator populations controlled every ecosystem. Everything about the planet screamed danger, and yet something felt incomplete. Something important was missing from the report. Then the AI spoke again. Its next words changed everything. Additional analysis complete. Everyone looked up. The AI paused. Then it delivered the message. Dominant intelligent species detected. The room froze. For several seconds, nobody breathed. Several scientists thought they had heard incorrectly. Vilek slowly turned toward the display. "Repeat." The AI obeyed. Dominant intelligent species detected. Shock spread through the room. A Class 14 death world contained intelligent life. That was impossible. No civilization could survive conditions like these. Not for centuries. Not for generations. Certainly not long enough to become a dominant species. The scientists immediately began searching for errors. They checked the sensors. The databases, the calculations, the satellites, everything. Hours passed. The result never changed. The intelligent species existed, and there were billions of them. The room erupted into nervous conversations. Maybe they live underground. They could be protected by advanced technology. Perhaps they arrived recently. Every theory sounded weak. Nothing explained how billions of intelligent beings could survive on a planet that seemed designed to kill everything living on it. Then another report arrived. One of the long-range observation satellites had intercepted communications from the planet. The scientists eagerly opened the files. Translated text appeared on the screen. Languages, governments, cities, entertainment broadcasts, news reports. The civilization was highly active, but what shocked everyone most was the behavior of its people. The inhabitants were not hiding from the dangers. They were living with them. Videos showed individuals swimming in oceans filled with predators. Others climbed enormous mountains for recreation. Some entered dangerous forests voluntarily. Many participated in activities that looked completely insane to the watching scientists. The aliens stared in disbelief. Willingly, one researcher whispered, "Yes." Nobody forced them? No. The room became silent again. These creatures were treating a Deathworld like a normal home. Vilek watched one recording after another. The more he learned, the more confused he became. The species seemed fearless. Or perhaps they simply did not understand how dangerous their world was. Finally, the AI identified the species. A name appeared on the screen. Species designation. Human. Homeworld designation. Earth. A researcher quietly spoke. Have they discovered us? Not yet, Vilek replied. The room remained focused on the holographic planet. Earth rotated slowly before them. Beautiful, deadly, mysterious. For the first time in galactic history, the Alliance had found intelligent life thriving on a world that should have been impossible to survive. Vilek knew the discovery would change everything. The Galactic Council would demand answers. Military leaders would want reports. Scientists across the galaxy would study every detail. But none of those questions mattered right now. Only one question remained. Vilek looked at the image of Earth and felt a chill run through him. If humans survived on a Class 14 death world, what kind of beings had evolved there? Far away, on the blue planet called Earth, billions of humans continued their daily lives, completely unaware that an entire galaxy had just become terrified of them. And this was only the beginning. For 3 weeks, the Galactic Alliance studied humanity. The more information they gathered, the less sense it made. Scientists reviewed thousands of reports. Every report created more questions. Humans lived beside oceans filled with deadly creatures. They built cities near fault lines where earthquakes could strike without warning. Entire regions faced hurricanes powerful enough to destroy buildings. Some places became so hot that metal could burn skin. Others became so cold that a person could freeze in minutes. Yet humanity continued to grow. Their population numbered in the billions. Senior researcher Vilek sat inside the council chamber as representatives from dozens of species argued around him. The discovery of Earth had become the most important topic in the galaxy. This species could be dangerous, one council member said. We know almost nothing about them. Another representative shook her head. They may simply be lucky. Vilek remained silent. After studying humans for weeks, he no longer believed luck had anything to do with it. Humans seemed adapted to chaos itself. Finally, the council reached a decision. A diplomatic mission would travel to Earth. The mission would establish peaceful contact and learn more about humanity. Nobody volunteered. The chamber became awkwardly quiet. Eventually, Vilek stood. I discovered them. All eyes turned toward him. I will go. The council quickly approved his request. 2 days later, the diplomatic vessel Horizon departed. As the ship crossed the stars, nervous conversations filled every corridor. The crew had trained for hundreds of first contact missions. But none of those civilizations came from a Class 14 death world. Nobody knew what to expect. Some imagined giant predators controlling cities. Others believed humans might be heavily armored warriors. A few feared they would not survive the meeting at all. After several days of travel, Earth finally appeared on the main screen. The crew stared silently. It looked peaceful. Blue ocean sparkled beneath white clouds. Green continents stretched across the surface. From orbit, it seemed beautiful. Vilek almost forgot the terrifying reports. Almost. Then the computer began listing active threats. Category 5 hurricanes, volcanic eruptions, earthquakes, wildfires, predator migration zones, dangerous disease outbreaks. The list continued for several pages. Several crew members looked away. One officer muttered nervously, "How are they alive?" Nobody answered. The diplomatic ship entered orbit. Moments later, Earth responded. A transmission appeared on the screen. The image showed a smiling human female. "Greetings. Welcome to Earth." The crew exchanged confused looks. She seemed relaxed, friendly, completely normal, as if visitors from another galaxy arrived every day. Vilek introduced himself. The woman smiled. "We've been hoping to meet intelligent life." The crew remained silent. Hoping? Most civilizations feared first contact. Humans appeared excited by it. Within hours, permission was granted for an official landing. The diplomatic shuttle descended toward Earth's surface. As they entered the atmosphere, Vilek noticed something alarming. Thousands of flying objects moved through the sky. Human aircraft. Some traveled at incredible speeds. Others carried hundreds of passengers. The traffic looked chaotic, yet somehow it worked. The shuttle landed near a large city. Vilek expected heavy security. Military vehicles, defensive systems, perhaps even planetary shields. Instead, he saw parks, families, children playing games, people walking their pets. The alien crew stared through the windows. "This is their capital?" One officer asked. "No," the guide replied. "This is just one city." The crew became even more confused. Earth looked far too normal. Soon they entered a meeting facility where human representatives waited. The humans welcomed them warmly. No fear, no hostility, just curiosity. The first discussions went smoothly. Humans shared information about their history and culture. The aliens did the same. Everything seemed perfect. Then disaster struck. Not a military attack, not a misunderstanding. Something much worse. A casual conversation. One human representative showed them pictures of Earth. Beautiful mountains, forests, oceans, wildlife. The aliens studied the images carefully. Then one picture appeared on the screen. A human swimming in deep ocean water. Vilek nearly fell from his chair. "Stop." The room became quiet. The image froze. "What is that person doing?" The human blinked. "Swimming." Vilek pointed at the water. "Our scans show large predators in that region." The human nodded. "Yes." "And people enter the water willingly?" "Of course." The aliens exchanged horrified looks. The humans seemed confused by their reaction. Then another image appeared. People climbing a steep mountain. Without vehicles. Without protective equipment. One crew member gasped. "Why are they doing that?" The human smiled. "It's fun." The room became silent. Fun? Risking death was considered fun? Things only became worse. The humans described camping in forests containing predators, exploring deserts, diving underwater caves, flying aircraft for recreation, jumping from cliffs using parachutes. The aliens listened in disbelief. Every story sounded like a survival emergency. To humans, it was entertainment. Then one representative mentioned something called sports. The crew expected strategic competitions. Instead, they watched videos of humans running into each other at full speed. Others fought inside rings. Some raced machines faster than military vehicles. A crew member quietly whispered, "These people are insane." Vilek was beginning to agree. The meeting continued. The humans discussed storms, earthquakes, volcanoes, disease outbreaks. None of them spoke with fear. They treated these events as normal parts of life. As the hours passed, a realization slowly spread to the alien delegation. Humans did not merely survive Earth. They understood it. They adapted to it, generation after generation. They learned how to live alongside danger. The planet had not defeated them. It had shaped them. Later that evening, Vilek walked outside the meeting center. A cool breeze moved through nearby trees. The city lights glowed in the distance. Earth felt peaceful, yet he knew countless dangers existed all around him. A movement nearby caught his attention. Several human children were playing. One suddenly fell. The alien instinctively rushed forward. But before he reached the child, something surprising happened. The child stood up, brushed dirt from his clothes, and continued playing. No panic, no fear, no concern, just determination. Vilek stopped walking. For a long moment, he watched. Then something finally became clear. The secret of humanity was not strength. It was not intelligence. It was not technology. It was resilience. Humans expected life to be difficult. When challenges appeared, they adapted. When they failed, they tried again. When danger appeared, they faced it. Suddenly, Earth made sense. A death world could never create weak people, only survivors. Back aboard the Horizon, Vilek completed his first report. The final sentence worried him more than anything else he had written. He stared at the words for several seconds before sending them. Humanity should not be evaluated as a species surviving on a death world. He paused, then added one final line. Humanity appears to be a species created by a death world. Across the galaxy, the report began reaching government leaders. And for the first time, some of them started wondering whether humans might become the most powerful species they had ever encountered. The report from Earth spread across the galaxy faster than anyone expected. Within days, every major government, military command, and scientific institute had received copies. At first, many leaders dismissed the findings. Surely the researchers had exaggerated. Surely humans could not be as unusual as the report claimed. But the evidence was impossible to ignore. Thousands of videos, millions of records, centuries of documented history. Every piece of information pointed toward the same conclusion. Humans were different, very different. Inside the Galactic Institute of Biological Research, the greatest scientific minds gathered for an emergency conference. Their mission was simple. They needed to understand how humanity existed. Professor Taurik stood before a massive holographic display, showing Earth rotating slowly in space. Dozens of scientists watched silently. Our objective, Taurik began, is to determine how an intelligent species evolved under conditions that should have prevented advanced civilization. The display changed. Images of dangerous Earth creatures appeared. Large predators, venomous animals, massive sea monsters, deadly insects. The room became quiet. One scientist raised a hand. Perhaps humans eliminated these threats long ago. Taurik shook his head. They still exist. A second scientist frowned. Then perhaps humans avoid them. Again, Taurik shook his head. Humans actively explore areas where these creatures live. Confused murmurs filled the room. Nothing about humanity followed normal evolutionary logic. The presentation continued. The display showed Earth's history. Millions of years compressed into minutes. Scientists watched ancient predators hunt across forests. Volcanoes reshape continents. Ice ages freeze entire regions. Meteor impacts alter ecosystems. Disease outbreaks spread across populations. The planet seemed determined to destroy everything living on it. Yet life survived. Again and again. Especially humans. Taurik enlarged a section of the timeline. This is where things become interesting. The image showed early humans. Primitive, weak, small, compared to Earth's predators. They looked helpless. One scientist laughed. Those creatures became the dominant species? It appears so. The room watched carefully. The more they studied early humanity, the stranger the story became. Humans lacked natural armor. No claws, no fangs, no protective shells. Physically, many Earth predators seemed far more dangerous. Yet humans survived. Not because they were stronger, because they adapted. When temperatures dropped, they created clothing. When predators attacked, they developed tools. When food became scarce, they found new ways to hunt. Every challenge forced humanity to improve. Every disaster taught them something. Every threat made them stronger. Taurik pointed toward the display. Most species in our galaxy evolved in relatively stable environments. Images of alien homeworlds appeared, peaceful climates, predictable ecosystems, limited predator populations. The differences were shocking. Earth looked like chaos compared to them. One researcher slowly stood. "I think we've been asking the wrong question." The room turned toward him. "What do you mean?" Tarex asked. The researcher pointed at Earth. "We keep asking how humans survived this world." He paused. "Perhaps we should ask what kind of species this world would create." Silence followed. The idea spread quickly through the room. For the first time, the scientists looked at Earth differently, not as an obstacle, not as a death trap, but as a training ground, a place where only the adaptable survived. The conference continued for hours. New discoveries appeared constantly. Human immune systems were unusually effective. Their bodies could recover from injuries that would kill many species. Their endurance levels exceeded galactic averages. Their minds adapted quickly to unexpected situations. Everything pointed toward one conclusion. Earth had shaped humanity through constant pressure. The world never allowed them to become comfortable. And because of that, they became resilient. Meanwhile, far from the Research Institute, the Galactic Council held another emergency meeting. The atmosphere was tense. Council members reviewed the latest reports. Many did not like what they were reading. One military representative stood. "If these findings are accurate, humanity may become a major strategic concern." Several council members nodded. Others looked uncomfortable. A diplomat quickly responded. "Humans have shown no hostility." "That is not the issue," the military officer replied. "The issue is potential." The room became silent. Everyone understood what he meant. Humanity had evolved under conditions that would destroy most civilizations. What might happen if such a species expanded into the wider galaxy? Nobody knew, and uncertainty created fear. Over the following weeks, scientific teams continued studying Earth. The deeper they looked, the more impressive humanity became. One report focused on human history. The researchers expected to find long periods of peace. Instead, they discovered countless conflicts, wars, natural disasters, economic collapses, pandemics, civil unrest. Yet humanity always recovered, sometimes stronger than before. Another report studied innovation. Humans constantly invented solutions to problems. When resources became limited, they adapted. When circumstances changed, they evolved new strategies. Failure rarely stopped them. It simply forced them to try again. That pattern appeared throughout their entire history. A junior researcher named Selna spent weeks analyzing human behavior. One night, she finally completed her findings. The results shocked her. She immediately contacted Professor Tarex. "You need to see this." Minutes later, Tarex arrived. Selna displayed hundreds of examples, stories of explorers, scientists, inventors, survivors, ordinary people overcoming impossible situations. Tarex reviewed the data carefully. The pattern was undeniable. Humans possessed an unusual psychological trait. Most species avoided difficult situations whenever possible. Humans often moved toward them. They explored dangerous environments. They tested limits. They challenged assumptions. Curiosity frequently overpowered fear. Tarex stared at the evidence. Now he understood. Earth had not simply created survivors. It had created problem solvers. A species that viewed obstacles as challenges, and challenges as opportunities. The implications were enormous. Later that evening, Tarex submitted a new report to the Galactic Council. The final conclusion filled several pages, but one paragraph immediately captured everyone's attention. Humanity should not be considered dangerous because they originate from a death world. The report continued. Humanity should be considered exceptional because they successfully adapted to one. The statement spread rapidly throughout the galaxy. Some viewed it as praise. Others saw it as a warning. Fear continued growing, but so did respect. For the first time, many civilizations began looking at humans differently, not as strange creatures from a dangerous planet, but as a species forged by hardship itself. However, unknown to everyone in the Galactic Alliance, a far greater danger was already approaching. beyond the borders of explored space. Something ancient was moving through the darkness. Entire star systems had already gone silent. Colonies had vanished without explanation. Distress signals ended abruptly. No survivors remained. And while the galaxy remained focused on humanity, nobody noticed the shadow growing closer. The greatest crisis in galactic history was about to begin, and when it arrived, every civilization would soon learn why a species from a Class 14 Deathworld should never be underestimated. The first warning arrived from the outer colonies. At first, nobody paid much attention. Small communication failures happened all the time. Signals were lost. Satellites malfunctioned. Equipment broke. Nothing unusual. But then a second colony went silent. Then a third. Then 7 more. Within a month, entire star systems had disappeared from the galactic communication network. Panic slowly began spreading. Something was wrong. Very wrong. Inside the Galactic Council chamber, emergency meetings continued day and night. Representatives from hundreds of worlds filled the massive hall. Large holographic maps floated above the center table. Every missing colony flashed in red. The number kept growing. Council members watched nervously. No one knew what was happening. No survivors had been found. No distress calls explained the disappearances. It was as if entire civilizations were simply being erased. Council leader Varric stood before the assembly. His normally calm face looked exhausted. "We need answers," he said. "We are losing worlds." A military commander rose from his seat. "We have already sent reconnaissance fleets." And the commander hesitated. The room became silent. They never returned. A wave of unease swept through the chamber. Entire fleets were disappearing. Not damaged, not defeated. Gone. For the first time in centuries, fear entered the heart of the Galactic Alliance. Meanwhile, deep in unexplored space, a patrol vessel drifted silently between distant stars. The crew consisted of 20 experienced officers. Their mission was simple: investigate one of the missing colonies. Nothing more. Captain Rila stared through the observation window. The colony should have appeared hours ago. Instead, darkness filled the screen. "Any signals?" she asked. The communications officer shook his head. "Nothing." The captain frowned. Even abandoned colonies produce background signals. Power systems. Satellites. Emergency beacons. This silence felt unnatural. Then suddenly a sensor alarm sounded. The bridge crew jumped. A massive object appeared on the scanners. Then another, and another. The readings were enormous, far larger than any known spacecraft. "What are we looking at?" Rila asked. The sensor officer's face turned pale. "I don't know." The objects moved through space without transmitting signals. No identification. No communication. No warning. Just silence. The captain immediately ordered a retreat. The patrol ship turned. But it was already too late. When the giant objects changed direction, it accelerated instantly. Impossible acceleration. Within seconds, it reached attack range. The crew barely had time to react. A bright flash filled the view screen. Then everything disappeared. The patrol vessel never sent another message. Back at the Galactic Alliance, the situation continued worsening. Every day brought more bad news. Trade routes collapsed. Colonies evacuated. Refugees flooded towards safer systems. Nobody knew where the enemy would strike next. Scientists worked desperately to identify the threat. Eventually, they uncovered fragments of ancient records. The information was incomplete. Most of it came from civilizations that no longer existed. But one detail appeared repeatedly. A name: the Void Swarm. The room fell silent when the records were translated. According to the ancient texts, the Void Swarm was older than most civilizations. It traveled between galaxies. It consumed resources, destroyed worlds, eliminated advanced life, then moved on. Entire empires had vanished trying to stop it. The records described countless defeats, not a single victory. Professor Taurix studied the ancient documents for hours. The more he read, the worse things became. The swarm adapted rapidly. Every weapon eventually became ineffective. Every strategy eventually failed. It learned. It evolved. It improved, the same way humanity did, only faster. Talrix immediately delivered his findings to the council. The reaction was devastating. Many representatives simply sat in stunned silence. Others demanded military action. Several openly discussed evacuation plans. For the first time, the possibility of galactic extinction became real. Then the attacks reached Alliance territory. Entire fleets mobilized. Thousands of warships gathered near strategic systems. The largest military force in galactic history prepared for battle. Citizens across hundreds of worlds watched live broadcasts. Everyone hoped the Alliance could stop the threat. The battle lasted less than 4 hours. The results shocked the galaxy. The Alliance fleet was destroyed. Not weakened, not damaged, destroyed. Thousands of warships vanished beneath overwhelming enemy firepower. Only a handful escaped. The survivors carried terrifying stories. The enemy ships were massive, relentless, unstoppable. Every tactic failed. Every defense collapsed. The galaxy had never faced anything like it. Fear turned into panic. Markets crashed. Governments declared emergencies. Millions abandoned frontier worlds. Some species began preparing underground shelters. Others accepted that the end might be near. As chaos spread, a special council session was called. Every major leader attended. The atmosphere felt hopeless. One by one, military commanders presented their reports. Each report was worse than the last. Fleet losses, resource shortages, collapsing defenses. No solutions, no victories, only failure. Finally, silence filled the chamber. No one had anything left to say. Then an unexpected voice broke the quiet. It belonged to Counselor Saran, an elderly diplomat known for unusual ideas. She slowly stood. "We are forgetting something." The room turned toward her. "What?" Varric asked. Saran looked around the chamber. "We are not facing this crisis alone." Nobody understood. Saran continued. "There is one species we have not asked for help." Several representatives immediately frowned. Then realization spread across the room. Humans, the very mention of a name, created tension. Some leaders objected instantly. They are too inexperienced. They are not Alliance members. They barely understand galactic politics. Others remained silent. They remembered the reports from Earth, the resilience, the adaptability, the determination, traits the galaxy suddenly needed desperately. Varric folded his arms. "You believe humans can help?" Saran nodded. "I believe humanity was shaped by surviving impossible situations." The chamber erupted into debate. Arguments echoed across the hall. Supporters and opponents clashed for hours. Eventually, after endless discussion, a vote was called. The result shocked everyone. The motion passed. Barely, but it passed. For the first time in history, the Galactic Alliance would request military assistance from humanity. A message was prepared immediately. Across dozens of secure communication channels, the transmission traveled toward Earth. The request was simple. The galaxy needed help. Now, all they could do was wait. Far away on Earth, the message finally arrived. Human leaders gathered to review its contents. As they read the reports of destroyed worlds, vanished fleets, and a seemingly unstoppable enemy, the room became quiet. Then one human general leaned back in his chair. A small smile appeared on his face. It was not the reaction anyone in the galaxy would have expected, and that smile would soon change the fate of the entire galaxy. The emergency message from the Galactic Alliance reached Earth during a quiet afternoon. Within hours, leaders from every major nation gathered for a secure meeting. Military commanders, scientists, engineers, diplomats. Everyone understood the seriousness of the situation. The reports described entire star systems disappearing, massive fleets destroyed, billions of lives at risk. The enemy seemed unstoppable. A giant holographic map floated above the center of the room. Red markers covered large sections of the galaxy. Each marker represented a lost world. The silence inside the chamber felt heavy. Finally, one diplomat spoke. "So the galaxy needs help." A military officer nodded. "It appears that way." Another leader studied the reports. "The Alliance has thousands of advanced worlds, and they're losing." The room grew quiet again. Humanity had only recently learned about the wider galaxy. Compared to the Alliance, Earth was still a newcomer. Yet somehow, the most powerful civilizations in existence were asking humans for assistance. Then General Marcus Hale leaned forward. His eyes remained fixed on the tactical display. What exactly are they asking for? The answer appeared on the screen. Military support, strategic assistance, emergency cooperation, whatever humanity could provide. Several people exchanged looks. The request sounded desperate, because it was. Marcus slowly smiled, not because he enjoyed the situation, but because the problem felt familiar. Human history was filled with impossible challenges: world wars, natural disasters, pandemics, economic collapse. Humanity had faced countless crises. Somehow, they always found a way forward. Finally, Marcus stood. We helped them. Nobody argued. The decision was unanimous. Within 24 hours, Earth officially responded. Humanity would join the fight. Across the galaxy, the Alliance received the message. Many leaders felt relief. Others remained skeptical. A few believed humans would make no difference at all. After all, if the Alliance fleets had failed, what could one young species accomplish? Nobody knew, but hope was becoming difficult to find. Several weeks later, the first human task force arrived. The Alliance expected a massive armada. Instead, they received a relatively modest fleet. Council members stared at the incoming vessels. Compared to Alliance warships, the human ships looked smaller, simpler, less advanced. Some military officers immediately looked disappointed. That's it? One commander asked. They sent this? The skepticism spread quickly. Many believed humanity had underestimated the threat. Others worried the humans did not understand what they were facing. Then the first strategic briefing began. Human officers entered the conference chamber. Alliance commanders expected nervous newcomers. Instead, the humans appeared calm, focused, prepared. General Marcus Hale stepped toward the central display. Show us everything. For hours, Alliance officers explained the situation. Lost colonies, failed battles, destroyed fleets, enemy movement patterns. Human analysts listened carefully. They asked hundreds of questions, studied every detail, examined every mistake. When the briefing ended, Marcus looked around the room. Then he asked a question nobody expected. What have you learned from your failures? The room fell silent. Several commanders exchanged confused looks. One officer frowned. What do you mean? Marcus folded his arms. You fought them dozens of times. Yes, you've lost dozens of times. Unfortunately. Marcus nodded. Then you've gathered valuable information. The Alliance officers stared at him. Most civilizations viewed failure as something to avoid. Humans often treated failure as a lesson. The difference immediately became obvious. Over the next several days, human teams reviewed every battle record, every mistake, every defeat, every disaster. Patterns slowly emerged. The void swarm adapted quickly, but adaptation required observation. The swarm learned from predictable behavior. Alliance forces followed strict military doctrines, standard formations, standard tactics, standard responses. The enemy learned those patterns and exploited them. Marcus finally understood the problem. The galaxy fought like machines. Humans fought like survivors. There was a difference. The first joint operation began shortly afterward. A frontier colony was under attack. Alliance commanders expected another disaster. Human forces arrived only hours before the battle. The enemy fleet emerged from deep space. Massive ships filled the sensors. The sight alone terrified many officers. The void swarm looked unstoppable. Yet the humans remained calm. As the battle began, something unexpected happened. Human ships refused to follow standard formations. They moved unpredictably, changed positions constantly, created confusion across the battlefield. Alliance commanders watched in shock. What are they doing? Marcus answered simply, adapting. The battle became chaotic. Human captains made independent decisions, improvised strategies, changed plans in real time. Everything Alliance doctrine discouraged. Yet somehow it worked. For the first time since the war began, the swarm struggled to predict its enemy. The fighting lasted nearly 12 hours. When it ended, the colony still stood. The Alliance had achieved its first offensive victory. The news spread across the galaxy like wildfire. People celebrated. Markets stabilized. Hope returned. But the most important change happened inside the military command centers. For the first time, Alliance leaders began paying close attention to humanity. Not because of superior technology. Not because of larger fleets. Because of mindset. Humans approach problems differently. When obstacles appeared, they adjusted. When plans failed, they created new ones. When conditions changed, they changed with them. The behavior fascinated Alliance scientists. One researcher spent weeks observing human crews. His report became famous. He noted something unusual. Human personnel remained effective even after repeated setbacks. Most species experienced declining performance after multiple failures. Humans often became more determined. Failure motivated them. It did not discourage them. The researcher summarized his findings in a single sentence. Humans expect difficulty. The report reached thousands of worlds. Citizens across the galaxy began discussing humanity. Respect slowly replaced fear. People finally understood why Earth mattered. Earth had never offered safety. It had offered challenges. Every storm, every predator, every disaster, every hardship. Together, they created a species that refused to surrender. Weeks later, another major battle erupted. This one would be far larger, far more dangerous. Human and Alliance fleets gathered near a critical star system. If the system fell, entire regions of the galaxy would become vulnerable. Millions waited anxiously for news. As the fleets prepared for combat, Marcus stood on the bridge of his flagship. The stars stretched endlessly outside the observation window. Enemy vessels filled the darkness ahead. The largest void swarm force ever recorded. An officer approached him. "Sir, their numbers are overwhelming." Marcus looked at the tactical display. Then he smiled. The same smile that had worried Alliance leaders weeks earlier. "Good." The officer blinked. "Good." Marcus nodded. "Now we finally know where they are." Across the fleet, human crews prepared for battle. Not because they believed victory was guaranteed, but because they had learned something on Earth long ago. When facing impossible odds, you keep fighting. And for the first time since the war began, the Void Swarm was about to discover why a species raised on a Deathworld should never be underestimated. The battle for the Helios system became the largest conflict in galactic history. Thousands of Alliance ships gathered around the system's 3 inhabited worlds. Human fleets stood beside them. Together they formed the final defensive line. If Helios fell, dozens of nearby sectors would become vulnerable. Billions of lives depended on the outcome. Inside the command center of the human flagship Resolute, General Marcus Hale studied the tactical display. The screen was filled with red symbols. Every red marker represented an enemy vessel. There were more than anyone had expected. Even veteran commanders looked uneasy. The Void Swarm had committed nearly all of its forces. This was not another attack. This was an extermination campaign. The enemy intended to end the war. Marcus looked around the bridge. No one spoke. Everyone understood what was coming. Finally, the communications officer broke the silence. Enemy fleet entering combat range. Across the stars, enormous swarm vessels emerged from hyperspace. The sight was terrifying. The dark ship stretched across space like a moving wall. Thousands of them, perhaps millions. For a brief moment, fear spread through the Alliance fleet. Then human voices filled the communication channels. Calm, confident, focused. A young pilot laughed. "We've seen worse." Nearby Alliance officers stared in disbelief. Worse? How could anyone consider the situation normal? But that was the difference. Humans had spent their entire history facing impossible situations. Fear was familiar. The battle began. Energy weapons illuminated the darkness. Explosions erupted across space. Entire fleets collided. The Helios system became a storm of fire and destruction. For hours, neither side gained an advantage. The Void Swarm adapted quickly. Every successful tactic became less effective over time. Alliance commanders grew frustrated. Their old problem had returned. The enemy was learning. Again, then Marcus issued a new order. Phase 7. Several Alliance officers looked confused. There was no Phase 7 in the battle plan. That was because the humans had invented it 30 minutes earlier. Human ships suddenly changed formation, then changed again. And again, every few minutes, new strategies appeared. New attack patterns. New approaches. The swarm struggled to respond. For the first time, the enemy looked uncertain. The Alliance commanders watched in amazement. The humans were not following a perfect plan. They were constantly creating new ones. Hours passed. The battle intensified. Both sides suffered heavy losses. But something important was happening. The Void Swarm was slowing down. Its adaptations became less effective. Its responses became delayed. Human unpredictability was creating problems. Then an unexpected discovery changed everything. Scientists monitoring the battle noticed strange behavior among the enemy ships. Information flowed between them. Command spread through a central network. The swarm functioned like a giant living intelligence. A single mind controlled countless vessels. Professor Taurix immediately contacted Marcus. We found the weakness. Marcus listened carefully. Taurix explained the discovery. Destroying individual ships accomplished little. The network simply replaced them. But disrupting the central intelligence could collapse the entire system. The challenge was reaching it. The command vessel was hidden deep behind enemy lines, protected by thousands of warships. Most Alliance commanders considered the mission impossible. Marcus disagreed. Impossible missions were often where humans performed best. A strike force was assembled immediately. Human volunteers filled every available position. Nobody hesitated. Nobody complained. They simply prepared. The mission launched within the hour. The strike force plunged directly into the heart of the enemy fleet. Alliance observers watched nervously. The odds were terrible, but the humans continued forward. Ship after ship took damage. Some were destroyed. Others lost communication. Still they advanced. The closer they moved toward the command vessel, the stronger the resistance became. Yet the strike force refused to stop. One damaged captain received orders to retreat. His response later became famous throughout the galaxy. We didn't come this far to quit. The message spread rapidly. Soon millions across the galaxy were listening to the battle, watching, hoping, praying. Finally, the command vessel appeared. It dwarfed every ship around it, a massive structure hidden within layers of protection, the source of the swarm's intelligence. Marcus stared at the target. This is it. The remaining ships accelerated. Everything depended on the next few minutes. The enemy realized the danger. Thousands of vessels moved to intercept. The battle reached its peak. Then humanity did what humanity had always done. They improvised. Several damaged ships altered course. Instead of retreating, they created openings. Others sacrificed themselves to protect the mission. Every action bought precious seconds. Seconds became opportunities. Opportunities became success. The strike force reached firing range. Marcus gave the order. Every weapon fired simultaneously. The command vessel disappeared inside a blinding explosion. For a moment, nobody knew what had happened. Then the impossible occurred. Across the battlefield, enemy ships stopped moving. The swarm's coordination vanished. Its formations collapsed. Its attacks became random. The central intelligence was gone. Cheers erupted across Alliance communication channels. The tide had turned. Within days, the remaining swarm forces were defeated. The war was over. The galaxy had survived. Months later, representatives from hundreds of civilizations gathered for a historic ceremony. The Galactic Council chamber was filled to capacity. Every major species attended. At the center stood a holographic image of Earth, the same planet that had terrified scientists months earlier. Council leader Varric stepped forward. The classification remains unchanged. The room became quiet. Earth is still a Class 14 Deathworld. No one disagreed. The planet was still dangerous, still unpredictable, still filled with countless threats. Varric continued, but we were wrong about its meaning. The image of Earth rotated slowly above the chamber. We believed Earth was humanity's greatest weakness. He paused. It was humanity's greatest strength. The audience listened carefully. Every storm taught resilience. Every challenge taught adaptation. Every hardship taught perseverance. The world that should have destroyed humanity instead prepared them for the impossible. Thunderous applause filled the chamber. For the first time in history, the Galactic Alliance awarded humanity a new title, Protectors of the Galaxy. Years later, a young alien student visited Earth. Standing on a viewing platform overlooking a vast human city, he asked a question that had become famous throughout the galaxy. How do humans survive a world like this? Beside him stood an elderly human guide. The old man smiled as he looked toward the horizon. Then he gave the answer that would be remembered for generations. We didn't survive it. The student looked confused. The human's smile widened. We grew up here. And somewhere beyond the stars, an entire galaxy finally understood why humanity would always be different.